news, from cricket to football and everything in between, with in depth interviews from your favorite sports icons. Check out The Bench Meeting, hosted by Kenneth Bob, on Sundays from 4 to 5 p.m., only on Win Media SKN.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the bench meeting on WinFM, winmedia.com, and our social media pages. Welcome to our usual guests. Welcome to those who are listening in for the first time. The program today will be a little bit different in the sense that I did have a guest schedule, but he was unable to make it. And I am going to kind of freewheel it, as I told Trent earlier today. No specific topics in mind, but yet there's so many different sports topics that we can discuss and enjoy. So welcome and thanks for joining your number one panelist, Mr. Kenneth Bob. And here we go. Now, first and foremost, most excited this afternoon because of the game that just concluded in the NBA, where the New York Knicks put away the Boston Celtics to clinch the number 4 seed in the East. Now, I deliberately said that in a monotone because the significance of that will resound to all New York Knicks fans, no matter what tone I say it in. So I'll repeat it once more for clarity. The New York Knicks has just clinched the number 4 seed in the NBA Eastern Conference. Okay, so an explanation now for those of you who are non-basketball fans and who may not have known the story of the New York Knicks. The Knicks are one of my two favorite teams in the NBA, the Detroit Pistons being the second. And I do not know, unlike the Detroit Pistons, I have not been able to I was not alive when the Knicks have ever won an NBA title. However, the Knicks always used to provide us with some sort of entertainment. It's Madison Square Garden after all, so you get some of the biggest names crossing there and enjoying playing basketball there and putting up some of their best numbers, best games, and it's the celebrity sideline views. I think the only difference between them and LA in terms of celebrity followings and that type of media is the fact that LA has consistently won rings and banners in their stadium, while New York still only have a few Eastern Conference finals banners to boast. And so you, as a New York Knicks fan, what you would find is that most times we are happy and content with just, in some instances, making the playoffs. When I really got onto the Knicks, it was because they and the Bulls were battling it out, and they seemed the best prospect to stop the Bulls. But again, alas, as many other teams found out during that era, there was no stopping the Bulls. And but they still produced some very, very exhilarating moments along the way. Most notable players such as Jamaican-born Patrick Ewing, Charles Malone. Was it Malone? No. It was Patrick Ewing, John Starks, Charles Oakley. That's the name I'm looking for. Charles Oakley. Then we had a time with Larry Johnson, LJ. He had come over from the Charlotte Hornets. New York has been riddled with stars. Over the last few years, they told us Carmelo Anthony was its latest poster child, but Carmelo to me never really grasped what the battle that was required to become and the grit that was required to become a true star at New York. And I'm not taking away from his talent and his ability to shoot and score. It's just that he didn't have the fight and they didn't expect anything. Similarly, Kristaps Porzingis, whom injuries unfortunately doesn't allow him to ever really be able to be the player he can be. That's more recently again. But New York made this guy Stephon Marbury. He was a very good point guard and one of the best in the NBA. I think he's still playing right now in the Chinese basketball league. He actually created some innovative ideas, such as coming out with cheap shoes and stuff, Starbury shoes and stuff like that for kids, so that they don't have to spend excessive money on the Jordans. I guess we all know how that worked out for him and them, because I don't see any Starburys on the street, but I still see quite a few Jordans. Nonetheless, New York has a very storied history. Again, the lights, the bright glamour of Madison Square Garden has always attracted some of the biggest stars and biggest performances. And the expectation was always that with the right people in the right places, New York would actually begin to start contending for some sort of respectability in the NBA as it relates to titles. Because you're talking about teams like Toronto, after all, winning NBA titles and having banners up in there, and you don't have one in the mecca of basketball. So, said all of that to say that over the past 13 seasons, the New York Knicks has not been able to make it into the playoffs, which means that they have been of 13, 14 teams in the Eastern Conference. They're about 26 to 28, I think, in total in the NBA. I can clarify that in a little while. But the in the last 13 seasons, a season spans a year, 13 years, the New York Knicks have not been able to gain any sort of respectability in terms of making it into the postseason. And even when they did make it into the postseason, they lasted only one round. Now, the significance is even further exaggerated from the perspective that New York does not have the usual plethora of stars that are now sparkling in the other teams, such as the New Jersey Nets. You have on the bench guys like well, I shouldn't say on the bench. You've got your name's slipping me right now. Let's start with the Lakers. Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Andre Drummond. Clippers, you've got Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, at the very least. James Harden. I don't know why this guy's name keeps slipping me. LeBron's nemesis, and such at the Brooklyn Nets. Needless to say, the big names that litter the NBA game stratosphere, circles, the ones that are more likely to attract attention and trophies and winnings and stuff like that. They are all over the NBA except at the New York Knicks. And it was a very deliberate plot by the new management, which only came into to being over the last 2 years or so. A very understated management, but yet obviously very effective thus far, because they're moving now into a position of serious relevance in the East, where the East on the whole is not really the strongest of the two conferences, and therefore the possibility of them doing more than just making the playoffs or challenging again is not that far away. And they're doing it on top of the fact as well that they are, for those who understand basketball, because they have not signed any big names, they are a primary destination now for big contracts for players who will be out of contract come postseason. So I believe the self-named Kawhi Leonard is apparently one of those persons. You've got one or two other players who are going to become available. Are they going to opt out of their contracts wherever they're playing, with the fact that New York Knicks, with the core that they have, Julius Randle, R.J. Barrett, these guys, this young but obviously very hard-working core, just add that one, two little pieces of star power, and you've got a team that could actually, dare I say, win the East. But as we still some far away from that, what I can say is, though, that today's result and the season's performances, kudos to the New York Knicks. Their coach and the organization have certainly turned things around, seemingly in the right direction. And it is good to know that at the very least there's a light, let's say, for the lack of a better expression, at the end of a very long dark tunnel for New York fans. And Tom Thibodeau, all the players, Derrick Rose, all the players that we never thought that would have made such a splash in the NBA, because I mean it's not like it's only East teams they've beaten. They've got a 41-31 record, a winning record now for the first time in however long, and they have beaten the Los Angeles Lakers. They have beaten the Clippers. I think the only teams that they struggled against in the West were the league leaders Utah Jazz and the Phoenix Suns, but even that is subject to correction. Suns, by the way, are having a magnificent season with Chris Paul behind them, but that's a conversation for next week when I have my guest here. But outside of that, the fact that the New York Knicks has displaced all these other teams to land fourth, and as I said with Jaden last week, for those who would have been paying attention, I said to him, that it is my perception, or week before, apologies, that it is my perception that if New York has home court advantage for the first round at least, and I'm actually going into the playoff picture right now, as it is, just to get so that I can actually speak to or what I'm referring to. Currently, as it is, the New York Knicks are scheduled to face the Atlanta Hawks in the first round. Now, Hawks are certainly no pushover. There is going to be a bit of fireworks. However, I could see, and you can hold me to this, I can see equally motivated and energetic New York Knicks overcome Atlanta in the first round, which would lead to a setup against the Philadelphia 76ers, Joel Embiid, Simmons, and again, I could see, some might call me fanciful, but I could see New York giving these guys a proper run for their money to give themselves an opportunity at the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, is it an easy road? No. But given the way they have been performing, given Philadelphia's postseason history of collapses, given the fact that the matchups with the New York Knicks, in terms of defensively and offensively, for that matter, is pretty good, then you're looking at a case where I say Knicks in 6. You say it early. If all things being considered equal, not only am I predicting Knicks to win the first round versus the Atlanta Hawks, I am giving them the edge. I'm giving them the edge at this point over the Philadelphia 76ers, and could take the Sixers in 6. Bold prediction, yes. Certainly one that sets me up for a major egg in my face even as soon as the first round. But hey, with the New York Knicks, the amount of seasons that we literally wore eggs on our faces all the way through, so it more come like treatment, for our pores and everything else. So I'm willing to take the risk this time around, and I'm throwing my full unequivocal support behind the New York Knicks to be in the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since, wow, that would be Patrick Ewing and John Starks days. And for those of you who had been around in those days, you knew how exciting those days were in in New York City, and for all the stars that they have over at the New Jersey or the Brooklyn Nets. Apologies, yeah, rename the team, the Brooklyn Nets. There's nothing as sweet as a New York Knicks team in the postseason for the fans. And hey, if you guys go on to win it, yeah, a team from New York still wins it anyway. But the real joy is when New York Knicks actually could finally lift the NBA trophy. So yeah, all that being said, kudos to the Knickerbockers. And I am looking forward to following you a lot, at least into two rounds of basketball, if not three, in the NBA postseason. Other significant results, well, most of the results from today, which I believe is the last day of regular season basketball, will go toward the final. Not many of them going to be affecting the final seedings in terms of the playoff run. We do know that the Lakers are going to be in the play-in tournament, I believe, versus the Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. What are this? Share. Let's take a look at this here, so I can give the audience a brief. Right. So, in terms of the play-in, you have a situation where in the West, you've got the Lakers who will play the Spurs, and the Warriors playing the Grizzlies at this stage. I guess what they're indicating is that there are certain results tonight that can change that. In terms of whether or not the New Orleans Pelicans will actually make it, and I don't think that's a possibility. They are 1.5 games behind, and you need at least two matches or three matches to and the right results to turn over that type of deficit. In the East, you've got the Boston Celtics playing the Charlotte Hornets, and the Washington Wizards playing the Indiana Pacers in the play-in tournament, which would set up, at this point in time, the winners of each will face the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets respectively, whilst in the West, the Utah Jazz has the first seed, and Phoenix Suns has the second seed, Denver Nuggets third, LA Clippers fourth, Dallas Mavericks fifth, Portland Trail Blazers sixth. So those are all guaranteed. Well, between the Portland Trail Blazers and the Los Angeles Lakers will decide that sixth position, and the other one will play in the play-in tournament. However, that's the makeup of the teams that could potentially make the West. And in the East, you've got, again, from the top, Philadelphia 76ers first, Brooklyn Nets second, Milwaukee Bucks third, New York Knicks, and I repeat, New York Knicks fourth, Atlanta Hawks fifth, Miami Heat sixth, and, well, the other teams, as I said, Boston, Washington, Indiana, and Charlotte. They will battle it out for the 7th and 8th positions in the East. Interesting new format to the postseason. I guess it affords the opportunity of the 9th and 10th seeds to try and see if they can, recover from whatever is hurting them to make a impact in the postseason. And we'll be following, everyone will be following this space closely to see how things work out in both conferences. I'll get some predictions, and then with my guest next week, I'll make a complete list of predictions by which I think the remainder, if by then the NBA postseason will progress. And you can feel free to message, disagree, laugh, as some of you have. Either way, yeah, I'll be able to make those predictions by the next week when we've completed this round of games or matches, especially this afternoon. And then you also have the play-in matches as well too. So yeah, that's it for the NBA. Lots of games going on currently. Um, as I said, some of them do have significance. The Knicks already beat the Celtics. The Suns just put away the Spurs, though that wouldn't affect them. You've got the Rockets and the Hawks at 7, the Cavaliers and the Nets at 7, the Magic and the 76ers at 7, and the Heat and the Pistons at 8 p.m. tonight. So that's the remainder of basketball for the remainder of the day. Now, let's go on to the EPL. We've had some games today, and they were of some significance. I must say that Liverpool have now mastered the art of drama, and Manchester United used to have that sort of aura about them, that sort of extra bit of, what's the word? Gallivant, extra bit of mystery, and then poof, last minute goals and drama that usually ends up in our favor, and yeah, Manchester United mastered the script when it came to excitement in the EPL. It seems, however, that Liverpool, even when not winning the EPL, have usurped them in that regard. City, yeah, everybody knows, but City is going to play this beautiful football, and for the football purists, there's some of them at least, yeah, it's a good thing to watch. But in terms of the passion, in terms of the story, in terms of the artistry, in terms of the undescribable and untouchable factors that go with these teams, these fairy tale teams, these story teams, these teams with so much history, they just always happen to add that much more oomph to their season. And because Liverpool is of the two giants, Liverpool is the one on the up. They are the ones that carry the drama. So their drama today was that they had a come from behind, if I'm not certain, win, a last minute 2-1 victory over West Brom. And the real kicker is that the goalkeeper, Alisson, had left his goal and had gone, and he was the person that literally connected and converted what I thought to be a very good header. That man, it was you would say for a goalkeeper, but for any player to be able to place the ball in the way in which he did, which gave the opposing goalkeeper literally no opportunity. Kudos to him. Kudos to Liverpool. That's 2 wins on a trot now after you stomped on our heads last Thursday. You seemingly heading toward the Champions League positions that you are battling hard to get. So let's see how things work in your favor going forward. Other results from today: Crystal Palace overcame Aston Villa 3-2. Spurs had an easy day overcoming Wolves 2-0. Wolves have not really had, since Jimenez got injured, and even from prior to, I don't think Wolves were really having as good a season as in the past, or recent past. And I guess they're going to have to be doing some reshuffling and rebuilding. They did lose Jota and I believe one other player, but they themselves really haven't been saying much. Yesterday, Leeds had a ball at Burnley at Turf Moor. They literally picked them apart. On the good news front for them as well, their coach Marcelo Bielsa is agreeing to sign a 1-year contract extension with them, on the condition that they retain their key players, and there's one additional player, I believe, that he said he wanted. So, Leeds fans, you're here and you're cemented your stay, and you've actually converted, or allowed Marcelo to convert your team into what is now considered Premier League mid-table team. So it's a good showing. However, cautionary tale. Many teams, Sheffield United, for example, have a very good first season in the EPL, and then soon after, following season, they're figured out somewhat, for the lack of a better expression, and we now face with a situation where they are being relegated. Mind you, Sheffield had more than one season in the EPL, and they had, I believe this was their third, where they stayed up the first two. With the second of the two, they placed as high as 10th. Yes, it was with Dean Henderson in goal, and there were other players and other changes in the postseason, but somewhere along the way, they failed to get kick-started, and for the first half of the season, they didn't score or they didn't win a single game. And Leeds, 4-0, good showing for a season. We'll look out for that come next season. Southampton 3-1 over Fulham. Fulham already gone. Brighton 1-1. West Ham, both of them secured. West Ham was hoping to try and move toward the Champions League. It does not look like they are going to be able to make it. So right now we have a position where we have in the top half of the table, Manchester City have already clinched their Premier League title with, I believe, 1 or 2 rounds of games to go. 2 rounds of games, yes, I'm correct. They accumulated to this point 83 points, which is some 13 clear of Manchester United, their closest rival or challenger. Leicester City are sitting in third position with 66 points, 4 points off Manchester United, which would mean that Manchester United are pretty much safe, given that Liverpool, Chelsea, they're 6 points off of them, so Chelsea would have to have 2 wins on the trot, and we would have to have lost both of our upcoming games for them to push us out of second position and a Champions League spot. Liverpool can't do it because they would, even with 6 points, they would only fall on 69. Leicester, however, are in the greatest danger, and you have a big clash between Leicester and Chelsea. Now, why is this clash so big? Because Leicester, they're on 66 points with plus 21 goal difference, and Liverpool are on 63 points with a plus 21 goal difference. What will happen is, if Leicester loses to Chelsea and Chelsea wins, they would obviously leapfrog Leicester and go into third position on 67 points. Liverpool will now be offered the opportunity to beat Burnley and go on to 66 points, tied with Leicester. Now, if that's the case, and Leicester has a lesser goal difference, and Liverpool improves their goal difference on the assumption that they win, then you will have a situation where Liverpool will have a superior goal difference, and going into the final game of the season, they are better placed to a 4th place position than Leicester would be. Conversely, if Leicester wins, Chelsea can be leapfrogged by Liverpool and again be displaced in the top 4. Conversely, if you have a draw, which is also a very possible scenario, Leicester will move on to 67 points, which will put them 1 point clear of a potential 66 for Liverpool, and they would usurp Chelsea, who would now be on 65, both of them having one more game to be played again. So the battle for top 4 is firmly in Liverpool's favour now that they've overcome their last 2 challenges. and it's going to be a tough call. Leicester will have to pull out their best games of the season after having won the FA Cup. And I'll speak to that shortly. And Chelsea needs to find a gear now that they need to find winning ways, because the last game they conceded into a loss. Now, I also wanted to congratulate Leicester on their FA Cup victory, and they would have won the FA Cup yesterday by beating Chelsea. Let me just get that particular result for you. FA Cup final review. Apologies. Where is it? And while I look on that, which I'm supposed to have found by now. Yes, so Leicester overcame all odds and won yesterday's FA Cup, and I'm just trying to get the exact result. Brendan Rodgers, it's historic. 1-0. Okay, yes, right. So they went ahead 1-0, and Casper had a very good game, and Kasper Schmeichel, that is the Leicester goalkeeper, and they are, for the first time in many, many years, the FA Cup champions. Over the last 10 years, I think, from the purchase of the time the new owners would have purchased them. I don't know if many persons would have remembered the gentleman who did purchase the actual club itself. He would have perished in a helicopter crash about 2-3 years ago. So it's actually his son who's managing the club now in his absence. And overall, the affection, the growth, the passion, the relevance of Leicester Football Club has been enhanced by this type of ownership. Conversely, Manchester United's ownership, which is the only reason I mentioned it in the first place, but at least it goes to show that type of commitment, it does bring good, wholesome, long-term benefits to the club, and that relationship between ownership and fans, ownership and club, ownership and those whom are invested in one way or the other is vital for the growth and the success of any football club. And Leicester, Leeds, Liverpool, they're all clubs that show that once there is some level of connectivity, once there's some level of relationship, Chelsea, between the owners and the club and the fans, that there's some sense of accountability at the administrative level, and that tends to lead to good things, because they're willing to open themselves up, whether it be criticism or praise, depending on the performance. And kudos to them. Brendan Rodgers, good story in of itself. He is, or was, the coach of Liverpool prior to Mr. Klopp, and he came in with a pretty good CV. He took some beatings. I don't think he was able to get the best out of Liverpool. And then with Steven Gerrard as your captain, I never really had confidence that he would have ever won anything. And so said, so done. They only won after he left. So I think in the final year, when he had very little to do with it. Or no, they won after he left. And he had actually already gone across Scotland. Brendan went over Scotland. He honed his skills. He regrouped. and he took up the job at Leicester. And this is after Leicester, this is the same Leicester who would have won the EPL title in 2018, 2019, 2020 with Claudio Ranieri, whom they also dismissed. And these are the type of changes. Jamie Vardy, he literally, you could see his progress through the lower leagues all the way up to being an EPL winner and now a FA Cup winner. His story, whenever it's written, is going to be one of a fairy tale. Kasper Schmeichel, everyone thought that he would have tried to follow in his father's footsteps at Manchester United. No, he has gone on to make a serious name for himself and a legacy for himself at Leicester. And again, he now has a EPL title as well as a FA Cup title on his resume. These are extremely good pieces of footballing folklore that will be written into the Leicester story as history writes it over time. And congrats to Leicester, the fans, the organization, the coach, and we are looking forward to see you going forward. And well, as I said, you're in the middle of a big game next week to see if you qualify for Champions League, but you have not. I don't think you're a Champions League team yet, but you've always defied the odds. And let's see how the end of the season unfolds. If not, Europa is not a bad league to showcase and hone your skills and build your squad, and then you take the step up into the big boys and the big leagues. Now, as it relates to the rest of Europe, this is also news of some level of significance that I need to unpick for a little while. I need to get into the La Liga. We already know who won the Bundesliga. We already know who won in that Bayern Munich, as again, there's no shocker there. Won the Bundesliga. They have the best squad. They have the best support. They are Germany's number one team, and therefore they have won or been reappointed. Won. Yeah, I guess you could give them a win. They are a good team. They won the Bundesliga again. Sensationally, Inter Milan has usurped Juventus and have won the Serie A. However, we have a very different scenario in La Liga. La Liga is going into its final day, and all we can tell you is that La Liga, for the first time as long as I can remember, may have a different winner of the La Liga title. Why I say that? Because Atletico Madrid came from behind today and put a licking in Osasuna 2-1. Barcelona, who were challengers up until this point, they lost. So they're no longer considered for the title. They lost to Celta Vigo 2-1. And you had Real Madrid, who are the team with the only opportunity to beat Atletico Madrid, winning 1-0, a hard-fought 1-0 at Athletic Bilbao. The significance of these results is that at this point, with one game, one round to go again, Atletico Madrid, they're on 83 points, and Real Madrid on 81 points. Now, they do have a superior goal difference. However, I would not want to, if I were Atletico Madrid, I'm going into that final game with nothing but winning on my mind, because you do not want to throw away an opportunity like this again. And it all goes to show, though, that among other things and impacts that COVID has had, it has impacted football in such a way where overall, generally, the team managements have been found out. And I say that in being extremely critical of teams such as Barcelona and Real Madrid and Juventus, in the sense of their Real Madrid and Barcelona especially have a history of incurring lots of loans and debt to acquire the biggest names in football. So yes, I appreciate the fact that you want some of the biggest names, but at the same time, you also have one of the best and most acclaimed academies in the world in the form of Barcelona. So why spend excessive money that you don't have on getting players when you could spend a lot more or conserve a lot more by trying to build out your homegrown talent, maybe send out 1-2 on loans and bring them back, that kind of thing, and build on that type of foundation that you are traditionally accustomed to. And then you could sprinkle, or once you balance the books a little bit, you could sprinkle in a few superstars here and there to assist. But I don't think that your way to a rebuild right now, or Barcelona's way to a rebuild right now, is to continue to leverage a whole set of debt to try and acquire players that is either hit or miss depending on their style of play, depending on their comfort level of playing with the team. And then obviously you still have the greatest player to have graced their complex, Lionel Messi, who you still have to accommodate, I guess, until he's 50, and hope that he could win something again before he finally decides to hang up his books. However, Barcelona wants a deal with it, so be it. Nonetheless, Real Madrid, alternatively, have always been leveraged by the Bank of Spain. And they have thrived on the Galacticos persona and image, where they acquire the big names, they sell the most shirts, they garner the most in sponsorship, and they're one of the most followed teams. And they then possess the most followed players on their teams. And therefore, based on popularity alone, they, make money off of the shirt sales and the sponsorships and the different partnerships and everything else. Kudos to them. But again, you always end up paying over the top for players, which, okay, fine. Your record is a little better than Barcelona's in terms of the hit or misses. You generally tend to get the best because most great players want to play with Real. But at this point in time, because of COVID, because of the financial impacts, because of the world economic scenario, it is ill-advised, and I don't think you can, which is perhaps why you're struggling so much now. It is ill-advised that you try to continue to sustain this purchasing the big-name stars. I see right now you want to poach Paul Pogba, for example, from Manchester United. It's ill-advised for you to try and go that direction, because if you bring players that don't necessarily find a fit, you have multi-million-dollar liabilities in your squad, such as Eden Hazard currently, and that does more to hurt your position than help it. So maybe start looking for the stars that performed in La Liga, the young stars in La Liga that performed, and see if of their willingness to join your revolution, your rebuild, and try and use your academy as well too. It's not as famed as the Catalans, but nonetheless, it has its stars and sprinkling of stars here and there. Send out 1 or 2 on loan. Call back your boy Odegaard. I really don't know what to tell you to do with Eden Hazard. I don't think he's done. I just don't think he has much to offer Real Madrid. But you never know. Maybe with a fully fit season next season, he may be able to shake off some of that fat that he has apparently put on and start creating the magic there that he did at Chelsea, not just 2-3 years ago, seasons ago. Um, but as I said, the whole world financial situation is such that has kind of tossed a lot of these teams in into rebuild and into restructuring, and I'm hoping that the lessons learned are such that they actually put into place structures that can sustain your success over periods of time and not necessarily dependent on debt, as the larger teams such as Real, such as Barcelona, such as Juventus. And the reason I'm hitting these teams so hard as well is because of the similarity of the mentality to my club, Manchester United, in terms of their commercial successes versus what's happening on the field. I mean, it's two totally different scenarios. I think the management and administration in those other clubs actually know a thing or two about football. So apologies to any disrespect caused in terms of that comparison. But yeah, the model, the business model needs an adjustment. I'm not certain where it's going to come from, but it obviously needs an adjustment, and I'm hoping that they can get it done over the next 2-3 years for the sake of football, because football without Real, football without Juventus, football without Barcelona is not as exciting as is football without Manchester United. It really doesn't. I mean, no matter what the fans say, opposing or otherwise, the football scene is nowhere near as entertaining without Manchester United challenging up there, even if it is at the expense of the likes of City and otherwise. Now, having said that, Atletico, I am throwing all my support behind yourself and Diego Simeone and the boys. Luis Suarez is a great opportunity to hit one back to Barcelona, having left them last season. I didn't like you in the beginning as a player, but you're one that seemed to have shown the ability to fight and overcome most obstacles and make a success, whether it was with Uruguay or with, in this case, Barcelona, and now latterly, well, Liverpool. You had relative success. You didn't win there, but you set them up for success by your sale to Barcelona. You went to Barcelona. You achieved the trophies that you wanted to achieve. Maybe not the Champions League, but otherwise you did well. And now you're at Atletico Madrid, and you're one victory away from perhaps clinching a first, very long while, as I said, victory or La Liga title for Atletico Madrid. Let's see how that unfolds next week. But as I said, it'll be interesting to see if it remains as is, and will be major shake-up in world football. All right, so just to close off this afternoon, there was one other issue that I thought I would discuss, and it was an article I was reading on one of our sports stations. I should also, before I even get to the article, let me congratulate the Bucks for their 4x4 volleyball competition tournament win. Last night they overcame the Bollywood survivors. Just to give you a brief rundown of the scores in 5 sets. The Bucks won the first set 23-25. Bollywood second 25-17. Bollywood third 25-19. Bucks fourth 25-16. And it seemed like the Bucks, stamina-wise, outlasted the survivors 15-19 in the fifth and final set. Again, when I do have my guests over the next week or so, we will discuss a bit more about that tournament. Needless to say, it was a very interesting one that I deliberately went and took a look at for more than one reason. And it's definitely something that I do hope can grow from strength to strength in the upcoming years. the article I wanted to share with everyone was a comment that, or some comments that were made by former West Indies great Curtly Ambrose, and it's pretty. Okay, so it was something. He was given a status or a prediction as it relates to West Indies cricket, and it sort of set off a firestorm in the region. But I thought what I would do is, which for those who are not aware of it, I thought I would read the article and just briefly, I think I have like 2-3 minutes to give you my one or two humble thoughts on the entire situation. So here goes. Fast bowling icon Sir Curtly Ambrose believes it would be difficult for the West Indies to unearth players with similar talents to those in the team of the glory days of the 70s and early 90s because the current crop of players has not grasped what cricket means to the people from the region. The outspoken 57-year-old Ambrose, who took 405 test wickets in 98 tests between 1988 and 2000, was speaking on Talk Sports Live with Michael Bascom in Antigua on Saturday when he made his stunning declaration. Quote, "This is no disrespect to the players we have now because we have a couple of guys who have some quality in them and can become great. But what we have to understand is that I don't think we will ever see those great, exceptional glory days again," said the towering Antiguan, who famously took 7 wickets for 1 run in a devastating spell against Australia in Perth in 1993. It's going to be difficult to find another Viv Richards or Haynes and Greenwich, a Brian Lara, Richie Richardson, a Malcolm Marshall, Curtly Ambrose, Courtney Walsh, Michael Holden, Andy Roberts, and the list goes on, and one Clive Lloyd. It's going to be extremely difficult to find those quality players again. He believes this has to be the case because the modern players have little appreciation for the legacy that made the West Indies great. I'm quoting again, most of the youngsters we have now probably don't quite understand what cricket means to West Indians in the West Indies and abroad, because cricket is the only sport that really unites Caribbean people, argued Ambrose, who took 22 5-wicket hauls during his illustrious test career. Quote again, "When we were the best team in the world, West Indians all over the globe could walk and boast about how good we are because we were the best. So it's going to be difficult to see those glory days again. Yes, we can be competitive and climb up the ICC rankings and be a force to be reckoned with again, but those glory days, I don't think we will ever see them again." For almost 20 years, the West Indies, under the leadership of Sir Clive Lloyd and Sir Vivian Richards, was the number 1 Test and ODI team in the world. The team won the ODI Prudential World Cup in 1975 and 1979, but have not won the tournament since. The West Indies are now ranked 8th on Tests and ODIs and 10th in T20 cricket, despite being the defending champions, having won the tournament in 2016 and 2012. End of article. Now, to summarize briefly, Curtly is saying that there's a lack of passion amongst the youngsters because there's a lack of understanding of how much it means to West Indians, to these youngsters and these players, so that we can't unearth and see the success of times of yore which would have, I guess, ended around the time when he and Walsh came on the scene and we started to really decline. I remember even in those days we used to complain about how far West Indies cricket had fallen, but we had those 2 guys running down and taking wickets at will. Nonetheless, I understand where Ambrose is coming from. He's missing that passion, but I also think that the former greats and the administrators do have a little bit of a part to play, because they treat cricket as if it were their own hegemony in their own respective areas. Whether it is you are a Jamaican, Trinidadian, and Guyanese who believe that The small islanders don't really have as good cricket players. So the small islanders say, well, oh, the big countries don't let me get the chance to play. All these little unnecessary hiccups, which, yes, you would expect there to be challenges along the way. They tend to detract away from what the core intention is, which is to make West Indies great again and having an unbiased approach to making West Indies great again. And as I said, for too many years, I think West Indies cricket was treated as a hegemony of a select few, and the rest of us were just fans and spectators. World sport has developed a lot more beyond that. And in order to have the fans buy in, you have to be a bit more in touch with what the fans are or is appealing to the fans. And you also have to rekindle the passion and the love within the home communities, within the home countries. What is your contribution, and how often do you return into your own communities and encourage club cricket and facilitate the building of so yes, we're not there, and we're far cry from there, and right now there is not a lot that we can hold on to say that we will ever get back there. But instead of crying about the fact that we're not going to get back there anytime soon, I think our time will be better spent putting the necessary things in place to see if you can create an atmosphere of success. And then once you create an atmosphere of success, the rest tends to follow over time. But it took many, many years for the West Indies to get to where they were at. It was never, the systems and structures were never in place to sustain that type of success. And we have never, until recently, really made strides in putting these structures in place and literally getting down to the nitty-gritty. So, yes, it's not the best bit of news to be sharing with your fans and everything else currently, but whilst I agree with you, I also would like to implore you to utilize that platform to try and help them, to those same persons that you to appreciate what you're played for and what West Indies cricket mean to West Indians and the fans around the diaspora and around the globe. So hopefully one day the likes of the Hetmeyers, who seem to be having a lot of problems, the Hopes, the Gabriels and the Berridges, Alzari Joseph, these are guys that, yes, they're not to your level yet, but let's invest in them and see where that takes us, and then reevaluate after 2-3 years again, see where we're at. So yeah, that would be my perspective on the comments, and I do hope that it's shared by some of our listeners and otherwise. So thank you all for tolerating me, although it was a bit fun, a bit of history in between here and there. Needless to say, there's a lot to look forward to next week. We are going to go down, pick into the basketball playoff situation. We are going to pick into the local football situation. There's been a lot going on. I really haven't been following up as much as I should have been. We are going to pick into the EPL and La Liga situation, at least the conclusion of each. And we are going to have a little bit more of a discussion on the CPL, because what I've been realizing over the last week or so, having followed the different media, the teams are beginning to retain their players and share their retentions. and none of our stars have yet appeared on any of the retentions so far. So I'm waiting for the Patriots to show their list of retentions, and then we can maybe have a bit more of a discussion, hypothetical or otherwise, in terms of what are our chances of not just hosting, but winning this year's CPL 2021. So with that being said, another early prediction on my part. I would like to say thanks again for being here with me, and I look forward to seeing you all and hearing from you during the course of the week, and being back on next week, same time, same place, same channel, same station, on the bench meeting. So you have a pleasant one from your number one panelist, Kenneth Bob.
For real and unbiased sports news and reviews, from cricket to football and everything in between, with in-depth interviews from your favorite sports icons, check out The Bench Meeting, hosted by Kenneth Bob, on Sundays from 4 to 5 p.m., only on Win Media SKN.